Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Eat. We're talking today all about New Year's goals and my personal goals for the new year. Now, to set the scene a little bit, it is 7 a.m., so the sun isn't even fully up yet, and we are diving right into the workday. I have a to-do list that is quite literally 100 miles long, and there's a lot going on today. So I said, let's start with the task that I most enjoy, which I think productivity experts say that we should always start with the task that we don't want to do first, like the hardest task. But I've decided to not do that. And I've decided to go the opposite way. Let's do the task that I want to do first instead. So here we are doing just that because you know how much I love the podcast and recording podcast episodes. And more specifically, I love talking about goals. So what I thought I would do is I would spend today's episode talking about my personal goals for 2025. I have my 2025 planner here, and I have a planner problem. I love planners. I buy new planners multiple times during the year, which you might think, well, Emily, what's the point of having a planner for the year if you're going to buy new ones every quarter? Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense, but I do it. So I have my planner here. I'm going to talk a lot about my plans for 2025 and my goals and kind of where my head is at. And this is health related and not, right? This is going to be business related, personal related, and so forth. But what I would love to be able to do is a year from now, in December 2025, record another episode that will be the end of season 2 of Let's Eat, and be able to talk a little bit about recap of how the year went, the goals that I had, and kind of do like a response podcast after this whole year has come and gone. So this is a lot of accountability that I'm putting out there so that I am, vocalizing, these are my goals. This is what I want to focus on. And then come a year from now, I'll be able to check in and say, this is what happened. This is what I achieved. And then go into the year for 2026, maybe doing the same thing. So that is my intention with this episode. And also just sharing with you what I would like to focus on come 2025. I know I spoke a little bit about this in my episode around turning 30 and goals for the next decade. It was my Let's Eat family dinner episode for December, but this was going to be more specifically for 2025. And I'm hopeful that this inspires you to start thinking about your personal goals and what you have in mind for 2025. I don't like to put a lot of pressure on goal setting. I don't think that it's necessarily essential in order to achieve the things you want to achieve, but at the very least, it gives you an avenue and a little bit of a direction to identify, okay, where am I headed? Where do I want to go? And if we really want to get granular, breaking it down into a SMART goal can be really helpful in defining it for you. So that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive or time limited. So you want something specific. You want something that you can measure. What's the point of a goal if you don't know, did I achieve it or not? You want something that's accessible. You want something that's realistic for you. Of course, you can be a little bit of delusional. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, well, I could be a little bit delusional. I think a little bit of delusion is motivating and exciting, but not too delusional. And then time limited, being able to give yourself a window of time as to, this is when I plan to have this goal achieved. This is the window of time I plan to invest here, and this is when I want to have it done by. So I don't follow that structure too much with the goals I have. Mine are more vague, more broad, but still goals that I am determined to address and achieve. And I'll give little kind of nods to these goals over the course of the year on social media and through the podcast as I achieve them, because I am speaking in the sense that they will be achieved, that it's not something that I might achieve, I could achieve, I'm going to achieve them. Okay. So let's dive in. I'm going to read directly from my list. Some of them I might kind of combine because there's quite a few and they all kind of maybe fall into the same category, I guess, like when it comes to like the umbrella they fall under. But my first goal is to teach Pilates. So as you know, I am now a certified Pilates instructor. I've been working on that since July. I completed it at the beginning of this month. And I'm really hopeful that I can start to actually put this to use. My long-term goal would definitely be to be able to offer Pilates classes on YouTube, even offer my clients Pilates classes or some sort of fitness training of some kind and utilize that in that regard. But for the sake of this next year, I really want to be able to start actively using this certification. Now, I'm not going to go any farther into that because there are more details that are in the works. So I'll keep that under wraps for right now because I don't want to openly talk about something that is still kind of underway. But the plan for 2025 is to create more space for me to utilize that certification. I shared when I was Lulu is snoring so loud. Quit being so rude. I shared when I was completing the certification that it kind of felt like an organic next step for me to move in that direction of fitness. This kind of all unfolded on its own. I started going to the Pilates studio that I still attend, and I, developed a relationship with the owner. We were looking into planning an event of some capacity that was happening back in May, and that's still kind of underway. We've been talking about it back and forth for the past several months about timing and what makes sense, and should we do it? Wait till the summer? So there's like a lot of logistics about putting this event together, and one thing led to the next, and here I am becoming certified and completing that program. So it really happened so seamlessly. And like I said, I feel like fitness has been such an important part of my life, so important. And I've always toyed with the idea of becoming a certified personal trainer or doing something along those lines. And this, like I said, just kind of happened, and it just unfolded the way it unfolded, very effortlessly. And so I know it's meant to be, and I'm grateful for that because this just feels right for me, given I'm so embedded in the health space and because exercise is such an important part of my life. I am really excited to be able to utilize this certification and see how that expands for me and being able to offer that to people, just because exercise, as I've reiterated and I've mentioned so many times, is such a valuable part of my routine and my life. So being able now to offer that to others and be able to bring that to others, like, that's so cool to me. That is so cool. And given I want wellness to be my career for the rest of my life, this just makes a whole lot of sense. So I want to be actively teaching Pilates at some point this year. That is the goal. Next, I wrote enroll and complete a functional lab program. So I wrote this list maybe the end of November, beginning December. So yes, I have already completed the first half of that statement. I have enrolled in a functional lab program. Now it's just about completing said program. So that is definitely underway. I have been working on it diligently the past few weeks, carving out time to sit down and really, put my head into this program as best as I can, because it is very dense, very cumbersome, and I want to be able to absorb each and every piece and part of this so that I can be the most effective practitioner. So the intended completion, or the estimated completion, is typically 7 to 9 months. I'm going to try my very best to get it done in 6 months. That is my tentative goal. So June 2025, I'll give myself that little bit of a wiggle room. I'll say June 2025, I will have completed this program, ideally sooner. And I would imagine I will be able to do it sooner because of the way I operate and just the eagerness to start applying this material. But I will give myself the flexibility to say June 2025, that's when I will start practicing actively. And as I move through this program, there's definitely going to be lots of podcast episodes to come talking about what I've been learning, what I've been, practicing in terms of the clinical side of application, because there's a lot of case studies and oral exams where I'm working, on a client, a fictional client, and their problems and their issues and their concerns, and running tests, and there's a lot of kind of hands-on. So I'm really excited to be able to share about that experience, especially as it unfolds for me, and then being able to obviously share more about my work once I really utilize it in practice. That will just be ongoing for the remainder of the time that I am hosting a podcast. So my next goal has to do with financial health. And this encompasses a couple different goals, both in terms of a savings goal, in terms of student loans, in terms of revenue for the business. So I'll keep those numbers to myself, right? But I want to just put out there, I feel like from a financial health perspective, both in a personal and a business way, this was an area that I feel like I was never given formal education in. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, especially, going through high school and even into college, unless you took any kind of course that was, specific to this, or you lived in a household that this was something that was openly talked about, or you had, guidance from somebody, a parent, a mentor, whomever. It's not something that we're necessarily taught. And I feel like for me, because I have gone the non-traditional route, both as far as working for myself and bartending, that leaves a lot of gaps from a financial perspective when it comes to retirement, investment, and so forth. I had, an investment plan and a retirement plan when I was working at the private practice for a short period of time. But since then, it's kind of just been this open-ended responsibility that I have taken on in terms of making a plan, or taking initiative from that angle, right? Financially, in preparation for retirement, understanding, what I need to be doing from, the bartending perspective, because that's obviously not included in what I do as a bartender. And then also as a self-employed individual. So there's a lot of planning and understanding that I want to invest in come this new year, especially from a business side of things. I use a software to manage my finances. I work with an accountant, but there's a lot of things that I don't necessarily understand that I want to understand when it comes to business and it comes to what exactly it is that I'm doing, and be able to understand that more on a granular level instead of just saying, well, QuickBooks will handle it, my accountant will handle it. I want to understand it better. And that's something that I don't feel like I am totally competent in. So a lot of this year is going to be focused on addressing any kind of lingering debt as it relates to student loans, investments for the business, and then personal investments. The investment I made in this functional lab program is certainly an investment, right? But I know it's for the betterment of my skills and my practice as a practitioner. And, that's what you do in business, right? You make these investments. So that's definitely something that I want to spend more time on come this new year, especially moving into my 30s. And then I also have some revenue goals for the business as well, and then saving personal savings goals. So all of this is underneath the umbrella of improving financial health and investing in understanding my financial health a little bit better, what types of moves I should be making given my circumstances. That's huge. Everyone's so different. And given my specific circumstances and what my goals are from a homeowning perspective, from a, retirement perspective, from a what's my plan as far as bartending goes, that's another pillar on my list, and my goal on my list is, deciding what my next steps are for my part-time job and what that looks like, and mapping out a plan so I can decide financially what makes the most sense. I just listened to a podcast from another podcaster and obviously creator. She just spent this past year as a full-time self-employed entrepreneur, and she talks about the trials that came along and the obstacles and the wins. And for me personally, that's something that I envy, because that is the ultimate goal. And she shared it took her 10 years to step out of her corporate job and move into entrepreneurship full time. Now, I am hopeful that that is not the case. I do love bartending and I love, the relationships I've built from it. But realistically, moving forward, I have other plans, right? I have goals in mind. I have, ambitions that will require me to be full-time invested in them. And so spending this next year really looking at those logistics and not just saying, oh, this is just something that I'm doing now, and I work for my business on the side, or I always joke I'm full time in my business, I'm overtime in my business, and I am part time a bartender. I want to be more diligent about looking at it more microscopically, so I can really identify, okay, what is it that I need to be doing in order to move the needle, so I can get to a place where this is feasible for me. And it's really hard because as a bartender, there's really no identifying how much I make regularly. Now I'm getting into more financial talk here. There's no identifying how much I make regularly. So that's really challenging to even put some sort of estimate on it so that I can actually take that step and I can make that move. So it requires me to be a little bit more intentional about tracking and seeing, where I'm at, what would it require of me to take that step, and what is my plan. Realistically, I see myself bartending throughout the next year, throughout 2025, and that's okay. That's completely fine. I want to be sure I'm secure in what I'm doing and the choices that I'm making so that I'm not putting so much pressure on my business. I think, as an entrepreneur, I feel very lucky to have my role as a bartender because it allows me flexibility. And I think the pressure that we can sometimes put on businesses when it is our full-time income can be really stressful, and it can cause a lot of resent within the business if it's not generating enough, or I feel like I have to hustle, or I have to sacrifice my own well-being because I need to pay my rent, I need to pay my bills. And yes, those are very real things, but at least I have the flexibility of bartending and doing something outside of just my business, that a lot of that weight is no longer put on the business. And I just don't ever want to feel that way, where my business becomes something that I am so obsessed with growing, which yes, I am obsessed with it, don't get me wrong. But from a financial side of things, that's really stressful. And I give anyone who's working in their business full time and growing it a lot of credit, because that can cause a lot of stress and resent and anxiety about, oh my goodness, how am I going to make this happen? And I just don't want to feel that way. I want my business to be something that is gentle and that is fulfilling for me. And so bartending really allows me to do that. And if it weren't bartending, it would be another part-time job. It would be another job that I'd be doing, whether it's a full-time job and I'd be working on my business on the side, or it'd be something else, that's a little bit more flexible. But as most of you know, I've been bartending for 11 years now, and I am so grateful for it. I feel like so much of my life has been influenced by that role. I even started crying in my episode about this the other day, or the other week. And so I'm really happy that I have this, so I can, be able to balance life. And honestly, I say to customers all the time, I'm like, working by myself and at home is great to an extent, but being able to get out and socialize in person with people, there's just, especially since the pandemic, that really is something I think I take for granted now. And if I were to, when I do go full time in my business, that will be something that I miss, because it's nice to have that person to person interaction. It's hard to just be in front of the computer, in front of the screen all day long. And yeah, I talk to Lou. We have conversations all day long. It's lovely and I love her, but people to people interaction is healthy and it's needed. We are not isolated beings. We thrive with social interaction. That's what we need. It's nourishing for us to have that. So I'm grateful to have kind of a good balance there, where I'm able to do what I love and I'm able to, build what I'm trying to build and grow what I'm trying to grow, and also have that time to step away from it, because that's healthy too. So those are my few financial goals. I guess it's like I said, there's more specific numbers involved. I'll leave those out, but savings goals, revenue goals, and then making a plan, a concrete plan, a more tangible plan for that transition, whenever that might happen, that I can hold myself accountable to. And I can take the necessary steps between now and say December 2026 to really decide, okay, this is the trajectory, this is the plan, so that I can get to a place. And that's going to be as far as, you know, what I'm doing in my business, so that by time December 2026 does come around, I could potentially take that step. And that's what I have to really kind of keep my sights set on, because the planning happens now. The planning happens now, not only from a personal standpoint about saving and being more responsible with, not even more responsible, just taking a heightened level of responsibility around my finances, so that I'm able to then take that step when I want to take it. Because it's not something that you can just decide one day, okay, I'm just gonna stop this now. It has to take a lot of preemptive planning in order to make that happen. So I know I rarely, I don't ever talk about something like this on the podcast. And I don't want to make this a part of the podcast necessarily, but it's a part of my goals. So I wanted to just openly share that. And I put a poll on my stories on Instagram the other day about content that you might be wanting to see. And I put in there behind the scenes more business. And a couple of you said you'd like the behind the scenes business. So this is quite honestly where I'm at. I feel as though this is the realities of entrepreneurship. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done, but is also the most rewarding and most motivating thing that I've ever done. And I would not want it any other way. I love, 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 love. I don't think I've ever loved something more than what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, but boy, is it tough. Boy, is it tough. And I am a one-man show. So everything I'm doing is all on me right now. I honestly could hire an assistant or something in here as part of my goals. Is that realistic? Probably not. I'm happy with what I'm doing, but I'm doing a lot. There's a lot of, tasks that I don't know how to do, how to do them. I'll be completely honest. I think the best thing that I've done, and honestly, I probably should have put this in my 30 things I've learned in 30 years, is just say yes. Just say yes. Just do it. Maybe I did say this. Just do hard things. Do it scared. That is like the best thing that I've done. And I'll say specifically from a business standpoint, just doing things and saying, I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to do it anyways. I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to do it anyways. That is the best thing I've ever decided to start implementing. That is the best thing I've ever started, because I do not know what I'm doing. Okay. Full disclaimer. Do not, and I'm saying like business wise. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been trained to run a business. I've never been taught how to do any of this. And I figured it out. I have figured it out. This is total, I'm self-exposing to the utmost degree here. Okay. And that's what the podcast is for. Really just exposing myself for the things that I know other people feel, because I know how relatable this is. And I have other colleagues, other girlfriends who are entrepreneurs. It's quite literally a journey that I've gone in completely blind, and I've somehow managed to make it happen. And I consider myself a pretty educated, intelligent, competent person. And with those factors in mind, I know I can do anything. I'll just figure it out. That's always been the case within the space of entrepreneurship, is I will figure it out. And I have. And there's still so much I have to figure out. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I haven't figured it all out. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that I'm not doing that could be so much more streamlining for my business, so much more effective, and I could generate more success and growth. Absolutely. It's probably right in front of my face, and I just haven't even, yeah. But what I have learned, and this can go for any area of life, is it is hard. I am scared. I don't know what I'm doing, and I could do it anyways. All right. I don't know how I got here, but that's so much of the mantra that I'm taking with me into 2025 is anything that's hard or anything that's challenging, or I've never done this before. It's all doable. You can do it. You can do anything. And I think that is something that I try to remind myself of, because how many times do we make excuses for ourselves and say, it's too hard. I don't know how to do it. I don't know, what the first step is. Just start. Just start. And that can be for someone who wants to get into content creation. That could be for somebody who wants to start a business. That can be somebody who wants to start exercising or start a new hobby. I mean, just start. Meet yourself where you are. Meet yourself where you are and start. I established my LLC in October 2021. So now we're going on 3 years of being an official business. I didn't really start taking clients until that following year, but I just started. I just did it. And I'm still figuring it out. I'm sorry that I'm going so far into this, but my heart is so much in this, is in this idea of, how hard things can be and how you can still do them anyways. And that's really like what I'm thinking about moving into 2025, but to like the utmost degree. I maybe was doing that, here and there with the things I was choosing and what I was investing in. Now, 2025, we are going to a whole new level. Every year, the past few years, I've chosen a word for the year. One year, I think it was expansion. One year, it was abundance. This year, I have yet to decide what that word is. I'm thinking about it, and I'll once I come to terms with it, I'll share. But I'm really trying to wrap up that energy into a word. I'm really trying to wrap up that energy into a word, and I haven't pinpointed it yet, but it'll come to me, and it'll be the word, and then that will describe 2025. That is the plan. So, long story short, this applies to all goals. For me personally, but especially from a business perspective. Just start, just do it, and figure it out along the way. I've probably listened to hundreds of podcasts of entrepreneurs who have said the same thing, that, these ultra successful individuals who didn't know what they were doing, and they started, and they just figured it out. And here they are years later. And yeah, there's failures involved. There's bumps in the roads. There's realigning that's required, or pivoting. Pivot. I think that might have been my word. I should write this down somewhere. I didn't write this down, I don't think. I think pivot was a word for me as well. But really being intentional about just putting your foot on the accelerator and just going and doing. That is a big plan for me in 2025. That is a big plan for me. I forgot to share what I was drinking. This is my molecular hydrogen by Symbiotica. I learned through oh my goodness. I'm so sorry this episode is so chaotic, but I think this is the energy that we're bringing into 2025. I learned through my genetic testing that I have a problem, with detox. I have all these issues genetically, that I have a hard time with oxidative stress. So this is, and free radical damage, which free radical damage creates oxidative stress. So this is molecular hydrogen, which is like a ultra powerful antioxidant, and it's helpful to address that on a very deep level. So I drink this every single day. I'm actually going to reorder another one while Symbiotica is on sale, because I drink it every day and I want to bring some to Florida with me. But it just looks like a carbonated beverage, but I drink it every day on an empty stomach. Today, I didn't drink it on an empty stomach because I forgot to make it. So we're drinking it right now. I don't know what this is, so forgive me for that. And then I have a matcha as well. Cheers. Okay. So now that I've just come down from that rant, my next goal is to do more for fun. I have had a lot of reflection over the past few weeks, and I realize that so much of these past few years have been hustle. And I don't regret it. I'm grateful that I have ambitions and that I have goals for myself. But I have really let doing things for fun fall to the wayside, to the point where it's hard for me to do things for fun and not feel like I should be doing something for work. And that's when you know. I've got to reassess. So my goal for 2025, I think in tandem with this, do more for fun, is to set more work-life boundaries. Now, what I also want to mention is all of that energy that I just shared about pedal to the metal, going into things, committing, can also be met with a healthy work-life balance. But it does take strategy. It takes intentionality for me to have my head in the game and devote my energy to all the things I want to achieve, and then also know when that time is done and it's time to rest. It's time to lean back. And that's really what I want to work on. And I say work on because it's not going to be like January 1st, all of a sudden, I'm just this ultra balanced individual and my work life balance is stellar. I don't even know if work life balance actually exists. And for me, I don't think it does and will ever exist fully. I think it's going to be a constant work in progress for me to check myself and know when I need to take a step back and know when I need to, pull back a little bit. But for the sake of this next year, I want to do more for fun and do more just because with my friends, with my family. And I also want to go hard in my business. And I'm going to find a way to manage both because with working hard, I shared this the other day, we also want to rest hard. I would even argue we want to rest harder. And that's where that more for fun energy comes. I also want to be sure I'm devoting at least 30 minutes of time. I'm starting this this week, I think, to reading every day, every single day, whether it's 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, or 30 minutes at night, more time to reading. That is really important to me. You know how much I love my books. You know how much I love to read, and that's so important. So I plan to start this week with that. Maybe we'll wait until next week just because between now and Christmas, boy, oh my goodness, I have a week. But especially when I go to Florida, that's going to be a huge part of my time is going to be spent reading, and I'm really excited for that. I'm planning what books I'm going to bring and if I'm going to order some new books for my travels. We'll see. But that is my plan for 2025 is do more for fun. Reading for me is fun, but what I'm reading is also contributing to my business because it's either a business book or it's a nutrition or wellness book, which is not bad. I truthfully don't want to read any other genre. I really have no interest in reading fiction. I have no interest in reading, but I want to be sure I'm more respectful of the boundaries that I need to set with myself. I think it's really tough because I've shared this before where I work all weekend long, usually even, the next several weeks I'm working most Sundays. So that means I'm working Saturday and Sunday. And typically that means Saturday nights and Friday nights and Sunday nights, I'm in bed. I'm going to bed. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And I realize I'm just working my weekends away. I'm just working. And at this point in time in my life, without children, with what I'm trying to build and what I'm trying to do, it does make sense, okay, for me right now. But I also want to be sure I'm setting boundaries with myself and saying I need to be doing more for fun. I want to be doing more for me, for my relationships, and just because life is so short and I'm spending all this time go, hustle, and I'm not giving myself that time to also meet that with things that I enjoy and that I want to do just for fun, because that's what you do as a human being. And I feel like these past few years, I've lost touch with that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that means, if I'm being completely honest, because I've just been so engrossed. And this is not just my business. This is a lot of my business, but also from a bartending perspective too, where, that kind of drains my social battery. And so that's like a social experience for me. And so then after that, I'm like, I don't want to do anything else. I'm good. So I really want to be more intentional about that. That is a big goal for me. And then also alongside that is investing more in my mental health. I do regularly see a therapist. I don't think I've ever shared that. So I do regularly see a therapist, and I'm open to talking about that because I think it's important. And I think we should all be in therapy. I'm a little biased, but I do regularly see one. And meditation has been something that I've kind of ebbed and flowed with, but I want to really hone in on that for the new year and make that more of a mainstay in my routine because of how important it is. And if I'm going to be pedal to the metal, go, doing hard things, I have to be meeting that with mindfulness and with breath work and supporting my nervous system. So finding that balance is really important to me. But yeah, really spending more time investing in that arena, whether it's journaling, reading contributes to that, meditation, and taking time for me. So not only doing more for fun, but also just taking time for me and doing more to fill my own cup. The most important relationship you have is the one you have with yourself. So that concept is really what I'm trying to lean into in this new year from a mental health perspective. Next, I have a lofty goal for podcast downloads. I think a general goal that I have for myself in the new year is expanding the podcast. I have shared with you a number of times how much I enjoy this space. And I would love for the podcast to be something that I'm able to do as more of a regular part of my work routine. And by that, I mean monetizing it. Now, I know that that takes time. I know that when you start a podcast, you're in it for the long haul. And that's really the process of how things unfold, especially nowadays with how saturated the podcast space is. But I really would love for this to be something that I can do as part of an income generating stream, as just something that I do more as like the majority of my work, I guess. I love one-on-one client work. I love all the things that I do. Content creation is great, but I'd love to be able to use this as more of what I'm doing and my work. I don't know if that makes sense, because I don't really know what that means necessarily from like a financial perspective, because I haven't gotten into that yet. But that is something I would love to do. And maybe not only this, but maybe more speaking engagements, maybe even events, doing more that is podcast-esque in a larger capacity that is more of my brand and my business and who I am. Because as you know, this has been so much fun for me. I have a whole calendar actually right in front of me of the past year of episodes just to keep myself organized. And I'm so proud. I'm really, really proud of what I've been able to create. I look back at all of these episodes and I'm so proud of them. I am so fond of them. Even the interviews that I've had and the opportunity to, be able to share in the way that I have been, not only through sharing with guests and interviewing guests, but also just for me personally. Like, I look at every episode and I'm like, that was a good one. Oh, I really like that one. Oh, that was such a good topic. I'm just so proud of that. And I'm excited for 2025 to go even deeper and to have more of that. But I love for this to be something that's more of my brand and who I am and what I do. So that is a big focus of mine come the new year, is learning more about how to grow, how to expand, and be more strategic in my use. This year was just getting my footing, right? This year was just learning, was just figuring out, am I even using this mic correctly? Because at this moment in time, I don't even think I'm using it correctly for the video episodes. I remember the one episode I kept saying when I was recording on GarageBand, I was like, guys, I think I figured out how to do the audio how to really do the audio. That was like such a big realization for me, because the audio was so obviously not where I wanted it to be. But I was like, you know what? Just do it anyways. And the podcast, back to my original point when I was saying about how just get started and just do it, there is no better illustration of that concept than when I started the podcast. I bought the mic, I had the GarageBand, and I just hit record. And here we are. So I want to start fine-tuning things, being a little bit more intentional about quality, and then also expanding as best as I can, utilizing this space, because I just started using this platform for video content, but utilizing the content that I can pull from it for my platforms, my social media, and just being more intentional about the use of the podcast, because I love it. I love it. I don't stop talking about it. I just am so grateful for it. And I'm just really excited to see where this can go. So this is really a big focus of mine for the new year, is bringing more intentionality. 2024 of the podcast, season 1 of the podcast, was really just about figuring things out. And if you couldn't tell, I mean, I think I figured it out for the most part. I hope it wasn't obvious that I was just figuring it out. But come 2025 in season 2 of Let's Eat, we're kicking it up a notch. Okay, so that is a goal of mine for 2025. Hands down, I'd love to expand this platform more, reach more, grow my audience, and really open up the floor to more opportunities that can come through this space. So that sums up the majority of my goals for this new year. I'm sure there will be more, and I don't want to overwhelm myself, but I would argue that this is a healthy blend of professional goals, personal goals, financial goals, and now just being able to create actionable steps that will allow me to achieve these goals is what I intend to do, especially while I'm traveling. I'm really excited to take time while I'm in Florida, and I know I mentioned this in my family dinner episode this month, to not only reset and maybe step away from work a little bit, but also give myself the opportunity to hone in on work a little bit more, and more in like a strategy, like a strategic way, as opposed to seeing clients and doing more like day-to-day tasks, kind of zooming out a little bit and looking at 2025 and deciding, okay, how am I now going to achieve these goals? What are the actionable steps that I need to take within these umbrellas so that I can actually achieve said goals? And I would argue, and I would suggest to you, this is one of the best ways for you to achieve goals. I would love moving into 2025 to not only expand on obviously wellness and health topics, but talk more about mindset and personal development. I know I mentioned this because this topic is so near and dear to me because of how much I've learned through podcasting and podcasts about this topic, and how much I've grown in my personal development space, and how goal setting is such a big part of who I am because I'm so ambitious and I have so much in mind and I'm so goal oriented. So I definitely want to spend more time. I might even, next week's podcast episode is all about New Year's resolutions. So I'll probably embed a lot of that in there, but spoiler alert, next week's episode is on New Year's resolutions. But yeah, I think that's something I really want to focus on for the new year. But for your sake, if you have goals, I would encourage you, break down your goal within that SMART goal, criteria or framework, right? And then create the actionable steps that you need to take in order to get there. And that can be something so minuscule as, I need to wake up 5 minutes earlier or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be these massive grand steps. For me, it's going to be, what am I doing on a daily basis to meet these goals? Because that's really where I want to look, is what are the microscopic steps that I'm taking every day? Because right now I function better in chaos. My to-do list is always all over the place. I really don't have any structure to my workday as an entrepreneur, which is something I probably should work on. But for me personally, I need to start looking at my day in reflection of these goals to curate my to-do list that allows me to take steps towards these goals. Because otherwise, what's the point? If I'm not creating a daily, checklist of what are the microscopic movements, what is the 1% that I'm taking, that I'm, making an investment in, 1% that's going to get me closer to this goal. And it's including all of these goals that I have listed: the financial goals, the functional lab program, the Pilates goals, the podcast goals, the work-life balance goals. And that's really important because otherwise you're not making any movement. You're just doing other things. And these are they're just goals that don't have have no substance to them because you're not doing anything towards them. So that is really the plan, is being more intentional on a day-to-day basis and then breaking that down. I really want to let that kind of, marinate for me over the course of my trip and start to pinpoint what are the actionable steps that are going to get me there. For example, the podcast, right? I need to start reading about what it means to expand a podcast, or listening to other podcasts about how to expand the podcast. I just can't keep doing what I've been doing. Yes, I can keep doing that. And over the course of January, I'm taking a break from the podcast so that I can come back better than ever. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to spend the whole 4 weeks of January educating myself on what it means to grow a podcast. I have to be willing to take those steps in order to learn what are the steps that I need to take in order to achieve this goal. I can't just keep doing and doing and doing. And don't get me wrong, there was growth this past year. Is it the growth that I'd like to see in this new year? No, I want to double that. I want to triple that. I want to quadruple that. So what are the steps that I need to take? Do I need to be doing that I'm not doing in order to get there? And that's the same for all of these other, goals, right? If I want to save X amount of money over the course of this year, how much do I need to be putting aside a week? How much do I need to be putting aside a day, a month? do more for fun? What boundaries do I need to set with myself around work that are maintainable that will allow me to do more for fun? What time do I need to set aside? If somebody asks me to work a shift where I'm already working X amount this week, how do I plan to address that? How am I going to rationalize working versus not working? All of this is going to be embedded in what I do from day to day. So now that I've shared my goals, I didn't really intend on going into this necessarily area, but it might be helpful for you. I feel like for me, that's exactly what I want to start doing, is really pinpointing those small micro movements that I need to do. If I want to finish my program by June, how much time do I need to devote every day or every week, say, to the program so I can get this done? I can break down all of these goals into those more actionable steps. So I want to leave you with this. If you have goals for yourself for the new year, which we all should have goals, okay, or have intentions or resolutions or whatever you want to call it, be sure that you're looking at it through a lens where you can take those actionable steps. Because without that action, without movement, you have an unachieved goal, right? Even if it's just 1%, you're still moving towards it. And I think that over the course of time, like I've always said, just 1%. What can you do every day to invest in your health? 1%. And over time, that compounds. So that is my plan. And I'm really excited because there's a lot of downtime while I'm in Florida. My dad obviously likes to fish, and he'll fish every day. I'll go fish, and I will enjoy fishing with my family. But I'll also enjoy sitting on the deck on my own and doing some of this planning and this brainstorming, and I'm really excited for it. So that is my plan while I'm away, to kind of get my head on straight as to what's to come, what are the goals that I have for myself, and how am I going to realistically achieve them. So thank you for being here. If you have wellness goals that you would like to kind of implement this process within those goals, and you want to schedule, say, a 90-minute call to do that, last year I offered something called Resolution Rescue, and it was all about essentially sitting down with me and formulating your goals, formulating the steps that you're going to take to get there. I am happy to do that. If I wasn't a wellness coach, I would argue this is a part of wellness, but if I wasn't a wellness coach, I would definitely be a let's set goals coach, because I love this. And I love supporting people in creating plans for themselves to be most successful in the new year. So if this is something that you feel you need support with, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am so on board to supporting you, even if it's not, health related. I can help you break that down and really explore those actionable steps, define the goals for you through a SMART framework so you can really get clear on what your goal looks like, and then how to take the necessary steps to get to those goals, to achieve those goals. So I will include the link in the show notes, as I always do. A 90-minute call would be a perfect opportunity for that, because we can really get into it. And then also, obviously, one-on-one coaching is always available too, if you're feeling like you need support from a nutrition, lifestyle, sleep, exercise standpoint too. That is always an option. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with me. That is what I'm going to show gratitude for. Thank you for bearing with me as I continue to just ramble and kind of go crazy around some of these topics. And thank you for allowing me to be a little vulnerable. This episode, I feel like, was a little bit more vulnerable from like the financial standpoint. And obviously, what I plan to accomplish in 2025, but this is really meant for me to hold myself accountable. I'm looking forward to reviewing this episode come December 2026. And, did I do it? Did I not do it? Did I surpass it? That's always the goal. Let's go above and beyond it. But I appreciate you for being a part of my journey, because that is exactly what you are. You're a part of my journey. I feel grateful to be able to share this with you. And I am wishing you all a happy and healthful, abundant, expansive new year.